Hey guys, how we doing? And welcome back for episode 2. We have a new name now, though. It's no longer Talking for Chicken. Not about chemistry. Because we're in chemistry class, but we're not going to talk about it.
Truly inspired.
We're your hosts, Amy,
Daniel,
Nick,
and I'm Claire.
and we're ready to share what we have to say with you. First topic of discussion is a history lesson or rant with Daniel.
Okay.
Daniel, take it away.
Okay, so, I this morning I woke up and I was like, hey, the Civil War could have ended like 3 years earlier. But it didn't. Because George McClellan, he's what the medical community likes to call big dumb.
Of course.
Ah, yes, medical terms.
Yes.
Basically, he screwed around as head of the Union Army for a long time and didn't attack the Confederacy when they were weak. And then the Civil War went on for like a whole bunch more. And then even after Antietam, when he essentially won the battle, or tactically at least, he didn't seize upon the victory and crush the Army of Northern Virginia. So he's big dumb.
Yeah.
So what Daniel's saying is that if Daniel was in the Civil War, he would have prevented it.
Basically, I am a tactical genius, is what we're getting at.
Ah, exactly.
Because me, tactical genius.
Big Dan.
Big Dan.
Tactical genius.
Big chief.
Big man, big
Dan.
chief.
Big chief.
Big chief Daniel.
Big commander-in-chief.
Oh, all right.
Gotcha. Yeah, but I think that about does it. I might revisit this topic later.
Mm-hmm.
If
That's
need be.
very likely. Very
Yeah.
likely. All right. Next up, we have Nick Dawson with Shane Dawson and the cat conspiracy
All right.
or controversy.
So listen, guys.
Nick's our pop culture guru.
So Shane Dawson, right? You've all heard of him.
I
You've all,
haven't heard of this. Just want to point that out.
maybe some of you haven't heard of him. So basically, Shane's a pretty interesting guy, right? So he's been around ever since YouTube has been around, right? For
That's what,
years.
2005?
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that.
something like that. And so he's over the years, he's had some phases. I'll just leave it at that. And he's got unnecessary backlash from a lot of the public for random things, like saying in his videos. One of them was for not being completely honest about his thumbnails, which is in my opinion wasn't that big a deal, but he was forced to apologize for it, and now he's back again with this cat incident.
Yep.
So which apparently he said something in his video with touching a cat, his cat, and that didn't result in the outcome he wanted. And
I don't know what outcome you would expect from saying that.
I
mean, it was a joke, but people took it way too far.
there have been worse jokes out there that people didn't pay much attention to, but because it's Shane Dawson and his history, and he's a fairly large YouTuber on the YouTube platform.
Community.
Yeah, he faced a lot of backlash for it, and so he was basically he was forced to apologize with a 5-paragraph form essay on his YouTube channel.
Can I turn that in as my research paper?
And hopefully he can get his audience to continue watching it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the joke was clearly a joke, and I don't get why he's getting that much backlash on it, but the memes that have come out of it are top
Gotta
notch.
say, fresh.
I did see
Top-notch.
something about this, that he just recently got engaged.
Yes.
But a lot of people were saying that was a distraction from what was happening, but I at the time had no idea what was happening, so all I know is he's getting engaged, so congratulations.
Congrats, Shane, I know you're a listener.
Right.
Yeah, I know you're out there.
Yeah, thank you. So Kyle, get ready.
All right, we're sorry about the conversations happening in the back, but we have, we
Yeah,
can't
ignore
do
this
anything
kid
about
named Kyle. He's a
it. He does give us a couple of our questions, though, so.
Speaking of which, he did give us one recently, which I'd like to pose to the group.
All right.
So, he asked if your goal is to fail, or if your goal is to not succeed, and then you don't succeed,
No.
did you fail?
And you do succeed.
No, if your goal is to fail and then you succeed, what did you do?
What do you do? So right, the question risen is is it succeeding if you try? No, is it what? Is it failing if you try to succeed?
No, is it succeeding if you are trying to fail? So if you are purposely trying to fail your math.
Right. Well, that's just a paradox.
I'll give you.
did.
I'll
Yeah.
give you an example. A friend of mine got in. Was able to audition for the all-state band. He purposely ruined his audition so that he wouldn't make it, but he was still placed second chair euphonium in the
Good.
state.
How do you do that?
I don't know. I guess
he
he
must
just-
be really good euphonium player.
So
if he-
in that case, I think that we need to distinguish between he failed
he
to
failed
reach his goal
at
of-
succeeding,
Yeah,
but
I'm-
he succeeded to fail.
No, I mean, like, I think that he failed to complete his goal, which was not be in it, but he
Right.
succeeded in joining
Right. So
all state.
there's two different like
I think
forms
he
of the word succeed.
I think he succeeded in his path to not do well in his performance. Obviously, if he purposely wanted to make his performance bad, then obviously I think he did it. But that doesn't mean that the judges thought it was bad. So he was successful to them. I think it's just a perspective thing.
Yeah, it's all relative.
I mean,
Everything's
it's always,
relative.
every single
Relative.
question, it's relative.
It really
it's your
is.
perspective.
different
really
strokes for different folks.
Ooh, that's weird.
I,
Okay.
you
Yeah,
might
that's
cut
pretty
that, Daniel.
Yeah.
All right.
So anyway, on to the next topic.
Amy,
So
you got a song, movie
we're gonna hit us
recommendation?
up. We're gonna hit you up with a
Some movie culture.
recommendation. I've seen a couple trailers for it, and I'm really excited to see it. The movie Us, directed by Jordan Peele, is coming out tomorrow,
Very,
Friday
very
the
much
22nd, and I would highly recommend if people would go see it. All right.
Now,
Jordan
wait,
Peele
what's
is-
it about?
It's I don't really know how to describe it because Jordan Peele's movies are very.
Unique.
If you've seen Get Out, you know what I mean. They're very
Suspenseful.
unique and they're suspenseful, and it's just really good. I look forward to seeing it.
All right.
You
Cool.
get
Now-
almost a surreal sense of it of sitting in the theater. It almost feels like you're with them, like the way the movie's set up is you get a bond with the protagonist, and so that's like I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Well,
Well,
I have a movie that I feel like you probably shouldn't see. 5 Feet Apart. I don't know if you've seen the trailers for that.
Yeah.
That
It does
looks
look
like
really
some
bad.
Paper Towns looking. John Green.
John Green.
What is this? Like 2007.
Did he write it?
I don't know. It looks like it. It's got
It's a Fault in Our Stars kind of movie.
It looks extremely.
Well,
bad.
Fault in Our Stars was good.
So like
So you're gonna like 5 Feet
It
Apart,
looks
Nick.
like they tried to be The Fault in Our Stars and then just gave up halfway through. And now
because
it's,
The Fault in Our Stars was about two people who were basically dying, and
and these
Yeah.
people are basically dying.
yeah.
yeah,
It's relatable.
yeah.
All right,
Never
so let's
mind.
move on. Daniel has a topic that's
Oh.
labeled language. I'm not really sure what
Yeah.
that is, but we'll let him talk about
So
it.
Claire actually brought this up. So Amy,
Claire,
Amy
huh?
was
I
lying.
did. I asked.
I was lying?
Amy was lying.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
this is
sorry.
Claire's
I
idea. I don't
posed
want
the
to steal
question.
this.
That was all Claire.
Do we need language in order to think? And Daniel
some
immediately
TOK
said, "Oh,
for
I
you."
got something to say about
Like
that."
I said, you
Yeah.
can just
So-
communicate by blinking.
So that's a
Or
form
Morse
of language,
code.
though.
Is it?
Yeah. It is.
Oh, and so
Yeah.
basically the definition of language, right? You want to pull it up for us,
Stop
Claire?
slapping on the table.
The definition of language
The
is
method
communication
of
to
human-
others.
Yeah, the method of human communication.
Right. So if you can't, you think about this logically, if you cannot communicate with others in any way, shape, or form, not through color, not through, tapping or through your mouth, how do you think of anything?
So I-
because our ancestors, like how they survived was
So
communication.
are you saying, like, if there's no form of communication whatsoever, like no words, like how could you think? Like,
Would
what
we
would
like
you be
not
thinking
exist?
about?
Could we survive?
I think that I'm going to tie this to 1984 because there's something kind of similar, which the concept of newspeak, and like how the government controls what words people can use and what words people know. So if you don't know a word for independence, you might have some kind of amorphous,
Right,
fuzzy
right,
idea of what
but-
it is, but you're not able to conceptualize it and communicate it with other people. You just have a gut feeling which you can't do anything.
Right, but that's
And
that's
think complexly.
that's going into how language affects our like perception. We're talking about how if the absence of language, if it's still possible to think in
I mean,
general.
no, I think that still affects cognition because, like I was saying, it's
Language affects thinking, but the absence of language.
I think
what is that?
you could probably feel like primal emotions like fear and hunger and those things
Right,
that
you can feel,
don't
you
need
can still
words
feel your
to-
senses. Right, think about Bear Grylls goes out to the wild, lives for like I don't know a week or whatever,
Drinks
does a
his
little
own piss.
video, talks to himself, goes kind of psycho, crazy.
I love those
um,
shows. I'm sorry.
They're
I
very
enjoy those
entertaining.
shows.
But anyway, he goes out, right, and he survives without, any communication except for journaling and finding ways to like maintain his sanity.
Well, I mean, Bear Grylls he has a full camera crew with him. But,
True. Okay.
but
Well,
like,
in
but like
different,
Survivor Man,
in different, in
like
different
Survivor Man, he does
scenarios.
that.
Like,
I really like the show Dual Survival. I don't think it's a show anymore, but one of the guys never wore shoes and like ever, and it was just, it was great.
thank you for
I
that,
just
Amy.
wanted to
Thank
point
you.
that out.
Thank
I
you.
like
for that.
survival
Another
shows.
movie suggestion for you.
It's a show, but
Show,
it's okay.
My bad.
That's close.
Yeah. So like, for example, there's in the Congo, there's a tribe called the Himbi. I believe that's their name. They don't have a word for the color blue, and when they're shown a color wheel which like looks completely green except for one spot that's a blue, they just say that the whole thing is green.
Right.
Because what they see as blue, they just interpret as a color of green, like as a
Right.
shade of green, and like that's
Because their language impacted them
Yeah.
to, view blue as two colors instead of one.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I learned about that a few years ago, and I thought that was crazy. But, when you're in that situation, you don't realize it was happening.
Right. Your mind is just like confused, about to explode because it doesn't know how to process that information. It's like when you think of the existence of the afterlife, or death, your brain can't like fathom that because you've never gone through that experience. So you'll never know what it's like until you experience
and even if there is none, and you just like try to imagine it, like I when I think of like if there is no afterlife, I think of just like black, but like we wouldn't even
Yeah,
see
but
that.
your brain like can't fathom it because like
There would be-
logically
there would
when
be no
you die,
consciousness.
when you
Well,
die,
that's assuming there is no afterlife, but yeah.
it's all weird. It's all relative.
So now that we're nice and depressed, big sad. I think that to kind of sum it all up, I think that language affects how we think in a very meaningful way. I don't think that we can live without language and that we can function as conscious beings without
Oh, yeah,
language.
definitely.
Right, but without language, I feel we would go back to like very back in time, ancestor, pre society era,
Yeah, primal.
where
Amoebas.
amoeba
Hey,
like
this might sound dumb, but like babies don't have language.
Well, they do though, because like they're learning, and well, okay, I take that back. So they're learning the language, and like while they might not understand if you say, "Hey baby,"
Hey baby.
Yeah.
they might not understand when you say like, "Baby." The Battle of Hastings happened in 1066. They just think that you're making sounds with your mouth. But
Here's the
like,
history reference
yeah.
we were anticipating.
But like, if you, for instance, my older brother Sean, when he was a baby, he didn't speak really. Like he didn't start talking until he was older. But like, my mom taught him sign language for certain things. Like this was cookie. This was milk.
He's squeezing his hand. You obviously
Yeah.
can't see it. But
Yeah. You can Google them, but like he was still able to communicate even though he didn't speak
Right.
English and like
And they
for-
can
yeah.
communicate. They cry like all the
Yeah.
time. Babies.
Babies
So
learn they get
at
fed
least
when they
there's
get
that. Although you never know what they're thinking. Like, do they
Never
think
do.
like what are
Do
their
they
thoughts?
think?
Like,
Actually,
if they don't
so-
know words, like
So
what do they-
research has shown that babies obviously because they have a brain. If you have a brain, you are capable of thinking. You have intelligence. It's just that it's such a low level and unsophisticated like version of a mind that you can't remember. Like fish, for example, they can think, they just can't remember what happened 3 seconds ago.
Well, I mean, we got to define think by that, so I think that's a little problematic. But I understand your point.
Oh, so to define think, we have to establish like the difference between thinking and just a stimulus like response.
Which,
right?
I mean, you can argue that people are just responding to stimuli, but that's a whole another topic that I don't want to delve into.
That goes.
Yeah, maybe next time.
We'll get it next time.
Now, this brings me into the question, do you think, like, other animals other than us have as complex as a communication, like, system that we do? Like, let's say dogs, do you think they communicate as well as we do?
I think some animals may even have a higher sense of communication. Like, for instance, even in our species, girls or females have been shown to communicate easier and more frequently than like men. Right, sometimes that's why it's easier for like some women, particularly to like point out the obvious to them that may not be obvious to men.
Yeah, although, like in terms of other species, certain species do definitely communicate a lot more efficiently than us, like bees, for example, with all the pheromones and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
Because their survival depends on it. And us, especially in our society today, it's so easy to live, at least where we are, without like relying solely on. I mean, obviously we that's how we function. We have to communicate, but it's not like a survival mode. We're not always in that survival mode that animals are.
We're not trying to adapt.
Like wild animals, exactly. Because that's their one and only priority is to adapt, overcome, reproduce.
Yeah, basically. And we just have evolved past that, and now we're kind of like pursuing.
Exactly. For the past 2,000 years, we've been just pursuing desires.
Sigmund Freud would disagree, but he's kind of. A lot of his ideas were out there.
Do you want to go into that?
Yeah, so like Sigmund Freud basically said that every single human action is based off of a desire to either not die or have sex. So like
that can like in a very general sense that can be true. I can see why.
Because like this morning I wore clothes because it's cold outside and I don't want to freeze to death, and also I'll get socially ostracized if I show up to school naked. So like
but
that
like,
decreases my chance of getting a mate. Stuff like that. Like
but like you didn't.
It's pretty far out there.
That's in your unconscious mind, right? When you put on clothes, because the whole point is you thought of that one point in your life, but since you've just done it over and over again, you've kind of gotten used to the habit. Yeah, it's all in the subconscious, and you don't think about these things all the time. Whereas animals in the wild have to think about these things.
It's kind of one of the things that you're just accustomed to. Like, you're accustomed to plugging your phone in at night because you need it in the morning. And you're putting clothes on and you put your shoes on a certain way. Like, some people do it differently because I do one sock, one shoe. And then one sock, one shoe.
That's disgusting.
I know.
Never talk to me again.
That's it, you're out.
Most people do socks and then shoes, but I'm weird like that. But
I'm just quirky.
I'm not like other girls.
And The Office is a character trait.
Oh my gosh, I love The Office.
I love The Office, and I can't wait to tailgate at my college.
Well, we know what Amy's gonna do at college now.
No, I'm going to private school, and they don't have a really good football team at all. So,
yeah,
which is fine, and then I won't make friends. So it's okay.
Sell Yu-Gi-Oh cards in the street.
Yeah, let me just do that. That'll be great.
Yeah. So,
So, you think that wraps it up?
I think that about wraps it up. I think we can pull out with a song recommendation
from Daniel Marsden, which is going to be an actual song.
It is going to be an actual song. But I was going to do something big sad, but I think we need to be a little uplifting at the end of this.
All right, thanks for watching. See you next time.
Oh, by the way, the song is...
Okay, I'm not going to play that. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.